Welcome back to Kaido Rider. Now, there are so many Japanese bikes that cannot be bought here. But first, for reference, I do live and ride motorcycles here in Japan. Also, I work with bikes professionally. As for my history with bikes, these are all the bikes I've owned over the last nearly 13 years. Currently, I have a Yamaha and my wife has a Suzuki. This is all to say, I am a huge fan of Japanese bikes, but a touch miffed that I can't buy some of the best ones here in Japan. Also, for context, the regulations in Japan on CCs, car license can drive 50cc scooters, only 125 cc's and bigger are allowed to travel on major highways, i.e. the Kosokudor. 250 cc's and below means no shotgun or inspection and none of the fees that come with it. It also means you can modify it to your heart's content without having to worry about regulations. And finally, for licensing, small license are 400 cc's and below. Big license is everything above that, even though a Honda CB400 is much faster than an NC750X. This will matter later, and as a quick note, if I have made mistakes and any of the manufacturers reach out to me, I will pin a comment below with a link to a video of corrections, so be sure to look for that. But with that all said and done, we will go from the fewest missing bikes to the most, starting with Suzuki. Now, Suzuki is the least offender in all of this, partially because Suzuki doesn't really make that many new bikes anymore if you want something smaller than 1000 cc's. But you can see here you have the Hayabusa, you have the Gixxers, you have the Katana, you have the bigger V-Strom, you have pretty much everything you would want if you want something in your bigger license category. And as you scroll down to the smaller license, you probably already noticed 250 to 400cc, there's only a scooter. And if you go down to the 126 to 125, again, there's some bikes that you may have noticed are missing. As for the bikes missing from Suzuki Japan, it's easiest to see them on the US website with the Enduro series starting with the DR650S. This is sold as a brand new bike in the USA, but not in Japan. Followed by the DRZ400. Both models are not sold in Japan as a brand new bike, but you notice it is a 400cc enduro bike instead of a 450 like a lot of the other manufacturers do, and that is to harken back to the licensing system. 400 means everyone with a small license can still buy it. And the third one being the DR200S. This is again a bike that cannot be bought brand new in Japan. These have been sold in Japan. To be fair, I personally wouldn't want to buy a brand new motorcycle that is air-cooled and carbureted, but you can buy all of these as used bikes in Japan. A trend you're going to notice as the video goes on is cruisers. Cruisers are largely something for the American market, but as you can see here, all these cruisers from Suzuki are not available in Japan. Some of them used to be available, so you can buy them used. I know the smaller Boulevard is available as a used bike, but I believe that's the limit for Suzuki cruiser motorcycles. That being said about Suzuki, let's move to the next company that has a few more missing and more noteworthy missing models, Team Green. Like Suzuki, Kawasaki has all of their leader bikes that I'm aware of, including the Ninja, 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 the Versus, the Z Naked Ninja, and the Z Naked Ninja. Also, the Ninja, the other Z Naked Ninja, and classic Ninjas with the RS bikes. And just while we're still in the larger size motorcycles, here is the US website for the classic bikes. All the bigger Vulcans, other than the 650 Vulcan, and the baggers, and the touring cruisers, all not available in Japan. I personally have never even seen one used, but I may have just missed it. But continuing down to the 400 to 750 size, this is where we see our most noteworthy vacancy from the Kawasaki market. You can of course see at the very bottom here they have their off-road race bikes that are their 450 KX bikes. They also have the Ninja, the Ninja, the Ninja, the Ninja, the Naked Ninja, the brand new classic Ninja 650 in the RS. They do have the Vulcan, and they have a final Ninja. Looking at Kawasaki USA, you see the most noteworthy absentee, the Versus 650. Here you can see the 2021 Versus 650, and except for imports, this never came. Neither did the previous version of the Versus 650. And here you see the very good looking 2022 version of the Versus 650. This will not be coming to Japan in any color or any rendition. Which is quite peculiar, seeing how most Japanese roads are below 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour, and 650 being able to do the very rare roads that do exceed that. Looking back at the Japanese website, the Versus 1000 is available. Now, why they chose to give us a cumbersome, heavy, full-size bike for such tiny roads and not an elegant 650, even though Suzuki owns the market with the V-Strom, is beyond me. The 250 to 400cc. Now, you can see we have the Ninja 400, we have the naked Ninja 400s. And to the best of my knowledge, nothing is actually missing from there until you see there's no 300 Kawasaki's, because we go straight into the 250 Kawasaki's after that. Now this again, if you remember, there is no inspection for a 250 or smaller. That's why the Ninja ZX25R is a 250. It is a full-on performance race bike with no regulations for the owner as far as what you want to do. You want straight pipes? Go for it. You want the weirdest fender eliminator? Go for it. Whatever you feel like you should be doing to that bike, I guess, is up to you. But this is where you see two specific bikes that are made special for Japan. The first is the Versus X250, not 300. While the world gets a slightly more powerful 300, they sleeve it down and keep it below the 250 mark to lose a bit of power. But people prefer the less power with the no inspection. I guess that's a choice. That's Japanese culture where everything is about saving money. But the other one, which is a little more peculiar, is the KLX 230S. That's right. Also, not a 300, but a 230. This is updated with the 2021 version that the West saw with the KLX 300, just with a sleeve-down motor, but a very sleeve-down motor. And what you'll notice is missing is the Supermoto, which again is very strange. Japanese people are very happy with dual sport bikes, extremely happy with supermotos, but to the best of my knowledge, there are no stock supermotos available in Japan from the Big Four. You can modify it later, and you can find a lot of used versions of these bikes as supermotos. But as we keep going down, there's nothing else missing from Kawasaki that I'm aware of, but feel free to comment below if there was anything you didn't see here that you do see in your own country. Now we're to the company that slowly starts to hurt my feelings, Honda. If you look at the bigger Hondas, they all seem to be here. And from the surface page, they are all here. You have the Africa Twin, the NT, the Rebel, the Fireblades, the NCs, VFRs. You get down to the CBs, you get to the 500 Rebel, which is a very special bike that we will come back to in a moment. But as you go down, you see that is the end of the bigger than 400 bikes. If we scroll back up to the Africa Twin, now you see here we have the brand new 2022 colors, but let's click on one of them. Now, it still seems like a relatively normal page. You have the Africa Twin and the Adventure Sport, and a pop-up to tell me I guess I need the Adventure Sport. But if we scroll up here and we click this icon, you get to see your options. Here's the Africa Twin in red, just red. That's it. You get red. And for the Adventure Sport, all American red, white, and blue. This time I want to take you to a distorted France website. Let's go through Adventure Bikes to Africa Twin. And you get down here, you notice there are more colors. You can get the red, white, and blue, which I quite like, and the black one. And if you look at the Adventure Sport, France seems to also have options. Now, the reason I take this one such a personal offense is not just I want more colors. As far as I know, and was told by a Honda employee, the Africa Twin is made in Japan. It's made an hour and 20 minutes away from my house. Funny enough, Honda also paints their own bikes. These colors are being painted right next to where I live. I can't buy them. I can't even special order them. I can't even pay extra if I want these colored Africa Twins. You buy red or you don't buy one. There are several other bikes with color limitations. At least you can get the bike. If you see here, the Rebel 500, that's right, I said 500, the same engine as the CB500, the CBR 500, and the CB500X. If we go back to the main page, we scroll into the 400 category, there's a CBR 400R. and a 400X, not a 500. The reason being, again, people with smaller license don't want them. And scrolling up, you see we have the inline 4 CB400 instead of the parallel twin, because that one's already been here, and I would say is probably a slightly better bike. My theory for why you can get a 500 Rebel but not a 500 of the others is as you continue scrolling down, you see there's a 250 Rebel, and you see all the other 250 bikes. But looking back at the USA website, you see here are the 500 CBs, and then the 300 CB and CBR instead of a 250. Again, we get a sleeved down version of that. And in the spirit of sleeving down motorcycles, you already know what I'm about to say. Here is the CRF 250 Rally and the 250L, not the 300. My understanding is we got all the other updates, even the LEDs, we just didn't get a larger engine. It's also worth mentioning that the XR650L is not in Japan as a brand new bike, it is available as a used bike. The CRF 450RL is also not available, but there are CRF 450s that can be gotten. They are all the high maintenance race type as far as I know. But real quick, let's scroll through the rest just to show you this is the rest of the bikes available here in Japan, with some special bikes that maybe you don't recognize in the smaller scooter category. This is a delivery scooter, but they also have racing for these things, and it's pretty phenomenal. Back with Honda USA, let's look at cruisers real quick. There is the Rebel just like we have, but there is no Shadow Aero, no Shadow Phantom, and no Honda Fury. I believe there are versions of these that were here as used bikes, but not anymore. So as far as I know, that is the story of Honda's long lost. And finally, we find ourselves with Yamaha. Now, this one I don't slightly take personally, I very do, because I have a slight history with Yamaha. When I was in Osaka, a Yamaha dealership said they wouldn't take my outsider money because it's probably stolen, and I can't own bikes anyways because I'm an outsider. To Yamaha's credit, I posted something about it. A Yamaha representative reached out to me and apologized, and I had great service here in Tokyo. But the most hurtful thing about the Yamahas I'm going to talk about is several are made here, and we just can't have them. But I won't dig too far into it, and we'll just start going. Yamaha starts with their sport bikes. You see the YZF R25, the M25, and Yamaha does not sleeve down their 320 motors for the sake of inspection. You can get an R3, you can get an MT-03, which according to the website you can see is a 320cc motorcycle. Phenomenal. Then you continue scrolling down to the R7 that just got here 2 months ago, which is amazing how quickly it came, because we waited a year for the new MT-07 and for the new MT-09 and MT-09 SP. And if we keep going down, you see this is last year's MT-10, not the new MT-10 or the SP version. We are still waiting, and what I'll get into a bit later, we may be waiting multiple years for this bike. Because as you can see on this website, we're still in the 2021 colors for the other MTs. But scrolling down, you have these sport touring bikes, but for the Tracer 9, you see the Tracer 9 GT. Back here on another French website, because the US also can't get the standard Tracer 9, these weigh quite a bit less than the Tracer 9 GT, because the Tracer 9 GT has features I personally don't want. This is another motorcycle where I know the GT version is made here in Japan. I assume the standard version is too, but I'm not 100% sure. This is something I can never own unless I go through the hassle of importing a bike that was already exported from this country. As I slightly brag to the Europeans, due to Euro 5, you lost the FJR. Japan still has it, though if you're concerned about climate change, that's maybe not a good thing. Continuing down, you have the retro bikes. Now, I don't know if the SR400 is outside of Japan, but it's here. And I gotta take that win because we have the XSR to whinge about. And it is not the updated XSR 900 that Europe and the USA have. There's no telling when it's coming. Last I talked to Yamaha, a long way away. Back at Yamaha Japan, you see the XSR 700 is still the older version of it, not that the updates were that big. In Europe, they have the X Tribute. But the closest thing you can get to this is that flat seat being imported. You cannot get the X Tribute in Japan. But I believe the reason for that is it is a French motorcycle made in France. And we will get to that hilarious fact in a moment. Just as a little note, the XSR 125 is not on the Japanese website, but I have seen them in Japan, so I'm not sure what that's about. But back at the classic bikes, that is the end. Just a quick nod to touring bikes, you see the Star Venture. There are no Ventures here in Japan. And as far as Star motorcycles, I used to have a Yamaha Star Striker, and there's also the Yamaha Raider. But as far as Yamaha Japan, we get the Bolt R, and only the Bolt R. Continuing down, you have the off-road bikes. We have the Yamaha Cero. We do not have the TW200 anymore. We used to. And the Tenere. If you're in the USA, you know you waited, was it 3 or 4 years to get the Tenere? Well, we in Japan waited for after you. The Tenere is originally a love child of Yamaha France, and Yamaha Japan did not want French motorcycles here. They were worried about build quality of other nations, which makes my story earlier about prejudice sound a little more realistic. But we had to wait till after the US for them to build a factory here to make the Tenere, export it to you first, and then we got it. Which is why, to be fair, you hear about some quality control issues in Europe that you don't hear about over here or in the States. But on the topic of the Tenere 700, you may have noticed there's no Tracer 7 and there's no Tracer 7 GT. That's because these are also French motorcycles, so they won't bring them here. And the previous Tracer 700 and Tracer 700 GT never came here. I've seen 2 ever on any website anywhere, and they were imports. But that is because these are French motorcycles, and even though they would be literally perfect for Japan, effortlessly the best bike for Japanese roads, big enough to tour, small enough to be uncumbersome, we can't have these because you decide in the comment section. And this is, for reference, why I have a Tracer 900. But as we get down to the bottom, you see Yamaha has all these scooters, and then it has more smaller scooters, and then a few little scooters along with one electric scooter. One last note for Yamaha is the Tenere World Raid that recently got announced in blue and midnight black. We waited over 3 years in Japan for the Tenere 700, longer for the Rally Edition. And now that there's the World Raid, which solves and creates new problems, I have no idea when I'll even look at one of these in person. It's possible that things will speed up with the pandemic ending, but it's also possible that I could conceive a child, watch it be born, teach it to walk, and then walk it to the unveiling of this motorcycle after Europeans have been riding it and modifying it for 2 or 3 years. But that's it for this video. Again, remind me in the comments what I missed or complain about my whinging. And if you want more of my content, I have plenty of other playlists and videos you can look into. And subscribe and like if you want to see more of this. But till next time, I'll just say thanks for watching. This has been Kairyu Rider.